ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of race number 13, season 61 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. The championship hangs in the balance now as we are in our final round of the playoffs, our final two races of the season, and four drivers ready to duke it out. Last week, we saw the field get whittled down from 8 playoff drivers to our final 4. Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Next week is where the championship will be decided, but Talladega will be the precursor. And if you're wondering, well, this format, isn't it kind of difficult to have really close battles for the championship when it's between 2 races and not a one and done? Well, this format was implemented back in season 59, 2 seasons ago. In the past 2 seasons, it was a 2-point advantage that Grant Wesley won the championship over Bob Seminara, and last year, Richard Martin picked up his first championship by 1 point over Joe DeSpirito. So the rhetorical answer to that is no, it does not affect how close it can be for the championship, and we're looking forward to seeing what Talladega has to say about who might have the slight advantage going into the final race of the season next week. So we got about 37 drivers ready to take the green flag here tonight. A lot of points going to be available for those chosen 4. 3 of them former champions in this series. Chuck McClure, Brian Schilling, and Joe DeSpirito. Jeremy Jeffries may be the underdog statistically coming into this one, as he's the only one that has yet to win a championship in this series. We'll have to wait and see how these 4 drivers do here tonight alongside of the 33 non-playoff drivers. Random qualifying draw puts Greg Palmer on the pole position. Palmer, a former playoff contender, got eliminated back in the round of 14. The round of 13, our first round. He was the winner of the season opener, so he locked himself into the playoffs very, very early on. Another former winner on the season, Josh Metallic, alongside of him. Metallic got eliminated back during the round of 13 also. Those two looking to go back to victory lane for another time here in season 61. As we're awaiting the command for the engines to fire up. Looks like Bob Dixon is going to roll off in the 3rd spot alongside of Doug Hewlick. There's your command to fire up these engines here this evening. Bob Seminara got eliminated from the playoffs last week. Did not advance into the final 4. He will share row number 6 with John Godfrey. Jessica Shelton going to be in row number 4 alongside of Cy Jones. And the top 10 will be completed by Jerm Lewis and Bernie Mobbs. You got to go all the way back to 11th place starting spot to find our highest playoff contender. That's Jeremy Jeffries, as he'll roll off from the inside of row number 6. Rodney Sullins will be to his outside. Brian Schilling, another of our final 4. He'll start inside the top 15 in 13th place alongside of the defending champion, Richard Martin. Row 8 finds Terry Bombard. He'll be sharing that row with Mark Paglia. And then Chuck McClure and Joe DeSpirito, the other 2 remaining playoff drivers we hadn't listed yet on the grid. They are going to be together in row number 9 in 17th and 18th. So the furthest back starting playoff contender still inside of the top 10. Or top 20, I should say. Kelly Causey and Dante Ricky, they'll be back in row 11. Row 12, Graham McDonald and Larry D. In row 13, Chris Emery and Jason Scheck. Row 14, Dave Melson and Bobby Farrell. Donnie Garrett makes up row 15 with Glenn Harris. 31st place will be Robbie Nices, Tim Knofsker in 32nd. Ron Hagel in 33rd. Ulysses Sandoval back in 34th. Tom Dixon 35th, 36th. Brian Rawson 37th place could be Jeff Crivello, Sean Prime, and JT Mayhew listed to make up the remainder of the field. A few drivers more than likely will not be taking the green towards the back of this pack. Sean Prime was on track during practice, running some laps, but he has since disconnected from the server. And Jeff Crivello in the 36th. We'll see if he takes the green flag here tonight. Last couple of weeks we've had him on the grid, but he has actually not taken the green flag. So we may have about 35 drivers taking the green flag officially here this evening. The usual 66 laps here at Talladega Superspeedway. Talladega the last couple of weeks has trended more so towards long green flag runs and pit strategy. Now as we draw ever closer to crowning a champion, will that narrative change or remain the same? It's going to be Greg Palmer in the Bacardi number 22 machine, bringing us down and getting us underway in the final round of the playoffs here for Season 61. Out of turn 2, Greg Palmer. Usually what the pole sitter does, leads on the inside line through the corner, then jumps up to that middle groove where the momentum starts to pick up. Right in front of Josh Metallic, opens up the door down low for Bob Dixon to get alongside of him. With help from Bob Seminara in the 712, Jessica Shelton in the 9. My broadcast colleague Michael Norman feeling under the weather here this evening. Want to send thoughts to him. Also, Wiley Cope found out is not in the field here tonight. He's also feeling under the weather, so sending thoughts towards Wiley. Hopefully we see him in the field for the season finale next week. Not wishing any bad omen, but Jessica Shelton running very well right there in that 5th position unofficially. If she ends up getting caught up in a wreck, she'll be making her way up here to the broadcast booth, but hopefully she'll be able to have a good run here tonight. Last race that we saw her in here at Talladega, she was run up inside of the top 5. I think she was running in 3rd and the engine let go, so hopefully that doesn't happen to her here this evening as Palmer, now clear of both lanes, still remains with that middle line, and Josh Metallic, 3rd lane starting to form up there. That's Burning Mobs leading the charge, and one of our playoff drivers, one of our Final 4, Brian Schilling, up there with him. 3 wide, about 7, 8 rows deep, looks like there. The Days of Thunder, neon yellow and green, number 24 of Joe DeSpirito is in the middle line. Jeremy Jeffries is on the bottom, Schilling up on the top, and looks like Chuck McClure is also on the inside line there, just behind the number 10 of Terry Bombard. I mentioned about the fact that of our 4 playoff contenders, 3 of them former champions of this series. Brian Schilling, the most recent champion. That was back in season 57. Joe DeSpirito, his last championship was season 54, and Chuck McClure's only championship up to this point was back in season 52. Jeremy Jeffries, he's won championships in a lot of the other weekly series here for Rolling Thunder Gaming. He's got a Bare Bones championship that I know of. He's also won, I believe, in the Aero 88 series that was on Wednesday nights. Not certain about Tuesday nights when they had the Winston Cup series. But he's won just about every weeknight's championship, at least one of them. Thursday nights have eluded him. Of course, last week we saw Jeremy Jeffries. He got shuffled out to about 5th or 6th with 3 laps to go at Burt Screwdrivers Raceway and fought his way back up to end up winning that race to lock himself into the Final 4. That's the venue we're going to next week. And we documented it last week as well that at Burt Screwdrivers Raceway a couple of seasons ago, Jeremy Jeffries actually had back-to-back-to-back victories at that venue. So you got to think that, I don't know, maybe a home field advantage feeling for him when we head there next week. As I mentioned, that this playoff format with having 2 races in the final round rather than just one final season finale was implemented back in season 59 as Cy Jones, man, what a save right there as he was all sorts of loose in that middle lane off of turn 4. Let's focus back on him because that could have really been bad. That could have been a big wreck off of turn 4. Nice job of gathering it back up, and now he's got Donnie Garrett there, so he got the 777. That should be a lucky number here. Hopefully it's lucky, as they're currently in the sucker hole a bit. Cars to left and cars to right. But back to the point I was going to make on the fact that this is the 3rd season that the 2-race final round of the playoffs has been implemented. We have had, at the time, 3 of the races won by drivers that were inside of the Final 4 competing for the championship. The only driver that was not at the time in the Final Four compete for the championship that won a race in the final round of the playoffs in the past 2 seasons was Chuck McClure. He ended up winning this actual race, the first race of the final round last season. The other 3 races, you go back to season 59, it was Bob Seminara who won the first race, Grant Wesley who won the second race. Those 2 were separated by 2 points at the conclusion of the year. Wesley over Seminara for the championship. And then last season, McClure was a then non-playoff contender who won the first race, and then Joe DeSpirito ended up winning the second race, which put him within 1 point of sniping the championship away from the eventual champion, Richard Martin, which, by the way, DeMar making his way up the inside line there. There you see him 4th on the bottom behind Bob Seminara. We saw him have a great run last week as well, when he was in the hunt for the championship last season, eventually got it done, and of course this season was trying to make his way to the playoffs. Whenever we talked with him, the emphasis was all about consistency. But then when the playoffs began, Richard Martin did not qualify his way in. Mentality changed. And the times we've talked to him afterwards, he's been focused on putting this 43 in victory lane, getting that checkered flag. Rodney Sullins. We've had a lot of scenarios here tonight that we've talked about in past seasons about 1 point difference. It was 1 point last week that had Rodney on the outside looking in to the Final Four. He's been in the Final Four a few times here in his Talladega Challenge career. I just barely missed out on it last week. So now, as we saw in the chat there with Sandra Sullins, 38's got nothing to lose. He can go 110% here tonight because no championship hangs in the balance. He's just looking to get that checkered flag before the close of the season. Well, that inside line, while it's not necessarily the preferred lane, it held pretty well. Bob Dixon and Bob Seminara, they were trying that inside line at the very beginning of this race. Now, while they weren't able to get to the lead, they have managed to maintain their positions. The middle line, the outside line have fizzled. Most of the drivers that were leading those specific lines have faded back to the latter half of the top 10, most of them outside of the top 10. Palmer was able to keep the lead, getting in front of Bob Dixon, but Dixon now in second, Seminara in third, Richard Martin there in fourth, and here comes Chuck McClure charging up the outside line. Got Dante Ricky there with him in the 84. Dante, a former winner on the season, but of course part-time capacity, so that win didn't get him a playoff spot. Looking to be a multi-time winner here in season 61. Bernie Mobbs is up there on that outside line, along with Jeremy Jeffries. Looks like most of our playoff contenders have now migrated up to that second lane. McClure and Jeffries are up there, although the other 2, DeSpirito and Schilling, are on the bottom of the racetrack. Again, tonight is not when the championship is going to be decided. These drivers that remain are looking to get maximum points, and then they have to maintain it next week. Which, by the way, speaking about next week, I don't know, it seems like this week in particular, the next 7 days, championships, a lot of championships are hanging in the air here on the Flatout Racing Network. Tomorrow night, we'll be bringing you coverage between split-second broadcasting on the Twitch side, Flatout Racing Network on the YouTube side, of the season finale at iRacing Super Speedway for the Upper Edge Racing Body Shop Super Speedway Series. Should be a good one there. Double points race, so a lot of drivers are going to still be in the hunt mathematically. You will not want to miss that one. It's been a crazy season leading up as, that was close off of turn 2. Dante Ricky pushing up into Greg Palmer. Next week on the Rolling Thunder Gaming side, we will be broadcasting not 1 but 2 championship races. We'll see you on Monday night as the Bare Bones Racing Series Championship will be decided from the Texas Motor Speedway, and then we'll be right back here on Thursday night at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway to crown the Season 61 Talladega Challenge Series champion. Another battle we have to keep an eye on here tonight as well. This is the finals of the bracket series, the battle within the battle that we see weekly. Jeremy Jeffries been waiting to see who his opponent's going to be, and I'm going to get to that in a minute because he just got turned off the nose of Bob Dixon. Schilling just caught air. Caution's going to wave. Big wreck on the back straightaway here. Josh Metallic, Tom Dixon. There were a lot of drivers in this one. They're all just trying to get themselves turned around. But that started with Bob Dixon pushing up off of 2 and getting the left rear quarter panel of Jeremy Jeffries. And at least 2 of our 4 playoff contenders were in the middle of that. How extensive was the damage they sustained? I don't know. There is one of them. Schilling. The back end of that car went up in the air. I don't know if it's one of those harmless blowovers. We've seen them before here in this series. And there is Jeremy Jeffries, the first car that we saw get out of shape when he got spun. There's Joe DeSpirito in the 24. He was obviously ahead of that. And there is Chuck McClure, who had taken the race lead, so he was well in front of that incident. We'll go back and take a look at a replay of what just happened. Second straight week that we've had a big one. We had a big one over in turn 3 early on in last week's race at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Multiple drivers involved, though it didn't take very many drivers out of the race, and I feel like this may be the same deal. A lot of drivers collected up, but I didn't at least initially see hard enough contact where it looked like it was going to take anybody out of this race in the early going. Here's a look at it. Watch the 143 on the bottom right there. Just the car pushes up, just gets tight. And there you see Schilling up into the air, but that thing lands back down on all 4 wheels, and I don't think he gets hit. No, he does not. Shelton slows up and doesn't make contact with him. You see Jeremy Jeffries spins around and keeps going. I didn't see anybody take any hard shots. Everybody else that was behind the wreck did a good job of getting on the brakes. So if there was contact, there was light contact. Of course, it's kind of a wait and see when we end up getting the upcoming restart as to what type of aero damage drivers might have suffered from. Watch here with Schilling. The only thing I'd be slightly concerned about for the Kodak machine is the hit he just had to the outside wall with the right front. How much of an impact was that? See at top of your screen, Tom Dixon was getting on the brakes as Josh Metallic was sideways up against the wall. And I think he got spun by either Jerm Lewis or Ron Hagelin. See if we can find Metallic in the 39. He was in the middle. Right behind, actually, Jeremy Jeffries. He gets up into Doug Hewlick. Dave Melson's in that. Graham McDonald, I see around further back. Ooh. I just noticed up at the top left, Bob Dixon came down and slammed somebody. That might have been Terry Bombard. Yeah, it was Jerm Lewis that got into Tom Dixon as he was trying to slow up for Jeremy Jeffries. Dave Melson gets his car turned back around. Jason Scheck there as well. Let's take a look at that hit for Terry Bombard when the 143 gets turned back down the racetrack. And look who's right behind him, Joe DeSpirito. Let's see how close Joe was to getting involved in this. Looks like he got through pretty well. Oh, that is a... Ooh, wow. That is a big hit for Terry Bombard. First, the shot from Dixon, and then the shot into the inside wall. I don't know exactly if that car is going to be up to speed or not. That's probably the hardest hit we've seen in this entire wreck. Let's take an onboard here. See what the 188 of Larry D is able to show us. He was towards the back end of the pack here, and I believe he got through unscathed. Let's take a look. That's how you get through the big one at Talladega, and you saw there with that shot, he was able to get a pretty clear look at the roof of the 4 of Brian Schilling. Looks like 2 drivers at this point in time are listed as out of the race. JT Mayhew, he actually came to pit road back on lap 7 and made the left-hand turn to the garage, and Jason Scheck has just recently retired out of the race as well. So Scheck will get credited for 34th, JT Mayhew for 35th position. Now, as we were talking about the bracket challenge, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that in a minute, Chuck McClure did take the race lead, so that does bear mention in the fact that he is going to be rewarded at least an extra bonus point for that lap led. With the fact that the last 2 championships have come down to 2 and 1 point, it may be very important, that lap led bonus point, by the time the checkered flag waves next week. Tom Dixon stayed out to lead a lap. He'll now turn the lead over to Greg Palmer. Palmer, by virtue of getting the pole in the random qualifying draw, he's going to have that number 1 pit stall, which will probably help him out on a number of the pit stops that we have under caution conditions. Bob Dixon, I believe, is still sitting on pit road in the 143. We'll get an update on him, if he is going to be able to continue or not in just a moment. All right, while we've got the 1 to green, let's use this 2.66 miles to bring you up to speed on that bracket championship battle. Rodney Sullins, the winner of the loser side of the bracket. Jeremy Jeffries been waiting up on the winner side of the bracket to see who his opponent was going to be. Those two face off here tonight. If Rodney Sullins ends up winning, if he finishes the highest of the 2 in this one, then Jeremy Jeffries gets a winner's side bracket rematch next week. However, if Jeremy Jeffries finishes higher than Rodney Sullins here tonight, then that's the one and done, and Jeremy Jeffries is your Season 61 Bracket Series champion. Speaking of Jeremy Jeffries, he's the one that we saw get spun around to bring out that caution, that wreck on the back straightaway, and kind of almost pulling a Kyle Larson when he got spun by Bubba Wallace last week at Richmond and was still able to maintain a spot up inside of the top 10. Jeremy Jeffries is going to restart from the outside of row 5 in the 10th position, so that spin didn't exactly hurt him. We saw him get spun around, grab a gear, keep going on the replay, and he was able to maintain some pretty good track position. I don't think they repaired any damage, because he certainly didn't spend any extra time on pit road, or else he wouldn't be up there where he is. So Jeremy Jeffries dodging a bit of a bullet there. Brian Schilling has been on pit road just about every lap during this caution period, but I think it's more so he's topping off the fuel tank rather than getting damage repaired. Chuck McClure going to be on the outside of the front row here, and Joe DeSpirito is going to restart back in the 23rd position. Getting ready to go back green. This would have been just a little bit before when these drivers were going to have to think about making a green flag pit stop. So I believe at this point in time we are still looking at least 3 more stops to the finish. Green flag back in the air. Greg Palmer going to lead us back into turn number 1. To answer the question in our chat of what happened to the 143, this particular racetrack, this particular setup, it doesn't matter what the car is, that inside line pushes up a lot, especially off of turn 2. You saw right there Bob Seminaire in the 712 drifting up the racetrack a bit there. Especially as the run goes on and tire heat begins to build up, it is really hard for the driver on the inside line to turn the car on that bottom lane off of turn 2 and off of turn 4, but more so off of turn 2, and that's what happened there with the 143. I've dealt with that. I've raced with these guys. I've raced at this racetrack. I've dealt with that tightness on the bottom. There's a couple of things that you can do to counter that. One of them, it helps you, but it hurts you, and that's to just kind of breathe the throttle, half throttle it a little bit off the corner. That helps to slow the speed a bit, get the nose pointed, but at the same time, you lose out on momentum and straightaway speed. That's a big reason why we end up seeing this middle line be so preferred down the back straightaway. Dante Ricci still trying to lead that inside line charge here. Side by side with Bobby Farrell in the 92. That'd be a battle for the 4th position. Donnie Garrett has gotten himself cleared into 3rd place in the Miller High Life number 77. Last time we saw him, he was trying to help Cy Jones. The two of them were in the sucker hole going backwards, but he's made his way forward there with Chuck McClure. And Greg Palmer still leading them as we got a 3rd line forming. Kelly Causey up there on the top. He's got Rodney Sullins. Looks like that's Mark Paglia up there with him. Update on the 143 of Bob Dixon. He did get off of pit road before the leaders came around. He is on the tail end of the lead lap. Tim Nofsker switches from the middle to the bottom. Now Glenn Harris will pull up to driver's right. That'll be a battle around 5th place. Larry D caught in the middle there. He's dropping outside of the top 10 as Kelly Causey leading that outside line. They've gained more numbers up there. Richard Martin's now up on the top side. Dave Melson, Jeremy Jeffries, Cy Jones, Jerm Lewis, Jessica Schulten as well. This is going to make things interesting for the top 5 because they're running the middle, and then there's 2 different lanes on the bottom and the top that are closing up on them. Glenn Harris is going to be the first one that'll be stuck in the middle. 5th car in that top 5 in the middle groove. Now they'll get alongside of Bobby Farrell, 3 wide for the 4th position. Oh, Farrell, wow! Big save from the 92 as he got loose going into 1, almost up into Kelly Causey. And now Greg Palmer is going to get caught out. Donnie Garrett and Chuck McClure saw that inside line coming. They jumped down to the bottom to get that momentum. Palmer did not make the move quickly enough. Now he jumps up to that 3rd lane, and while they might be able to get some momentum back, they are going to be slowed up, and Palmer is going to lose the lead to Chuck McClure. Donnie Garrett will slot into 2nd with Nofsker, Ricci, and Seminara crossing the line inside of the top 5. Well, when Chuck McClure ended up winning a race here in the final round of the playoffs, last season he was a non-playoff driver at the time. He had been eliminated from the playoffs. But it wasn't here at this venue either, that first race of the final round. There's a big hit there. Donnie Garrett to the back of Chuck McClure. Looked like he was trying to make a move, and Chuck slams the door on him. But Chuck won the race in the final round of the playoffs last season at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. But now this season, Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway is where pretty much everything was decided. It was the season opener, it was the regular season finale, it's where all the elimination races for the playoffs took place, and it's where the overall season finale is. Talladega had the honor of all of those different accolades 1 season ago. Donnie Garrett now to the point. And there's a lot of movement up here at the front. Dante Ricci, you saw him get his left sides down in the apron. Donnie Garrett was really low off of turn 2. It's an interesting line that the drivers that are not in the playoffs are kind of walking here because they know the 17, the 24, the 4, and the 1 are all battling for the championship. But at the same time, they want the checkered flag just as much. I feel like more pressure is on the playoff contenders than anything, because they have to kind of big picture race in, do I want to put myself in a perilous position with all these drivers racing as aggressively as they are around me? Or do I kind of maybe want to throw up my hands and say, okay, you know what? Big picture. I'm going for a championship. I don't need to force the issue nearly as much, and maybe by the end of the night pay the ultimate price and be in a bit of a points deficit going into the final race of the season. But Chuck McClure, I think his mentality is, and he might be right, is the safest place to be is as close to the front as possible. They're starting to stack up in that middle and inside line. Drivers further back are noticing that, and a third lane is forming. Richard Martin and the 43 up there to the top. Rodney Sullivan's going to move up there. Here comes Kelly Causey, looking like he's shading up to that spot. Also Greg Palmer going to move up there to the third lane. That's going to catch out Tim Nofsker. Chuck McClure, he was going to move up there and block, but just too much momentum out of the 22. And the pole sitter, Greg Palmer, trying to get back to the point, as McClure and Nofsker start going the wrong way. Well, remember we saw in our only caution up to this point that big wreck off of turn 2 on the back straightaway. That big shot from Bob Dixon into Terry Bombard. The biggest hits that we saw in that entire wreck. Well, it looks like the impact that we saw did translate to loss of speed. Bob Dixon is currently over 20 seconds behind this lead pack. Terry Bombard about 35 seconds back, both obviously with aero and more than likely engine damage. They're just going to look to try and pick up some spots here during the course of this race if we end up having other drivers involved in wrecks and retiring out of the race. But effectively looks like those two cars are not up to speed. As a matter of fact, looking at the scoring right now, Terry Bombard's only running about 20 seconds ahead of the race leader. His last lap was somewhere in the 177 miles per hour range on average. The race leaders were up in the 197 mile per hour average, so they're gaining 20 miles per hour on him every single lap. We could be encountering that 10 car with maybe even as early as the next 5 laps or so. 31 drivers currently up in this lead pack, back to the 45 of Tom Dixon. Also, we went back green at the completion of lap 17, going on to 18. There's Terry Bombard there in the 10 car. So they're going to catch him even sooner than I had projected. And based off of fuel window, these drivers should be roughly around 7 laps away from when they're going to have to start making green flag pit stops. And this season, especially second half of the season, green flag pit stops have been the deciding factors in a lot of different scenarios, mostly in regards to the playoffs and the elimination races. Now, more than ever, if you're one of the final 4, execution on pit road has to be maybe at the top of your checklist. Because if you end up making a mistake here tonight, you go in behind the 8 ball into next week's final race of the season. And if you make a mistake next week with a green flag pit stop, then you may be kissing your championship goodbye. Right now, though, no playoff contender up inside of the top 8. All these drivers up here, they're just battling for a victory. And I think that if we end up having a lot of our non-playoff drivers at the front in the closing stages, it should be a very interesting finish, because these drivers are going to have that reckless abandon where they know that there's no championship implications for any of the drivers around them, and there's going to be some aggressive moves, aggressive blocks. Should be a very exciting finish. Last week, remember, we ended up having where they were aggressive, but they were aware of the situation and the fact that we ended up having 7 of our then Elite 8 up in the lead pack. They knew they were all battling each other for a spot in the playoffs, so they didn't want to make a mistake, but at the same time, they wanted all the rest of the competition in the rearview mirror. May not necessarily be the case here in the close of this one, as we continue to progress further on in the season and more eliminations take place. The playoff drivers to non-playoff drivers ratio continues to increase in favor of the non-playoff drivers. We appreciate everybody tuning in to our coverage here tonight of the penultimate race, I guess we could say. First race of the final round of the playoffs here for the Talladega Challenge Series Season 61. The championship's going to be decided next week, but before we get to that point, got a couple more championships that are going to be decided between now and then. Tomorrow night, Flatout Racing Network on the YouTube side, Split Second Broadcasting on the Twitch side. We're going to bring you coverage of the finale of Season 5 of the Upper Age Racing Body Shop Super Speedway Series from iRacing Super Speedway. Double points race, a lot of drivers in the hunt for that championship. Bronson Stafford making a late charge here in the close of the year. Two-time champion of the series, looking for his third. Dylan Poteet looking for some redemption from last season. Oh, we got a wreck in the back! Brian Ross and Tom Dixon, is that going to bring out a yellow? I was looking, I didn't see lights go on the pace car. I think we're staying green. It was far enough at the back of the pack that there will not be a caution thrown for that. Looked like Robbie Nisus got up the track into the wall, and then some other drivers made contact around him, maybe in reaction to him. Tom Dixon, Brian Rawson get the worst end of that, and they will not have a caution to save them. But tomorrow night, championship decided for the Body Shop Super Speedway Series. Next Monday night, the Bare Bones Racing Series Championship hangs in the balance as they'll be at the Texas Motor Speedway. And then Thursday night, we'll be back here. First Screwdrivers Raceway, going to determine who is the Season 61 Talladega Challenge Series champion. Also as well, looking a little further ahead on the schedule, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be bringing you a couple of all-star races for RTG. Monday night, it is the Speedway All-Star Race, and Thursday night, the Super Speedway All-Star Race. So that's another thing that these drivers here will be racing for in these final two races of the season, is if you go to Victory Lane and you haven't already locked yourself into the Super Speedway All-Star Race, well, you've locked yourself in then, as Donnie Garrett hits pit road. Now, this is a couple laps sooner than projected. Jeremy Jeffries, Chris Emery, and Ron Hagelin coming in with him. Looked like it was going to be about around lap 36 that these drivers would be projected having to come to pit road. But Donnie Garrett and playoff contender Jeremy Jeffries, the leader and one of our final four, electing to hit pit lane early on here. We'll see how that pans out once everything cycles. It turns the lead over to the 84 of Dante Ricky. And we'll see if anybody's coming to pit road this time by. Yep, Dante's in. Seminara, Mobs. Well, just about everybody. That's a lot of cars coming in. We got a wreck at the back. Oh, man. Mark Paglia, Doug Kulik, Jessica Shelton got swept up in that. Richard Martin, Kelly Causey. Someone came flying in there. Got Mark Paglia, and then Paglia swept up almost the entire second half of that pit party. Everybody's scrambling to get turned back around. Larry D's facing the wrong way. He just got a shot from Bob Dixon. Is that Greg Palmer I think I see there in the 22? Well, I think for the drivers that came to pit road just moments ago, they are very happy that they did that because they didn't have to deal with the mayhem on pit road right there. I think everybody else hit pit road, and we still got incidents on pit lane there. Bob Dixon, Bob Seminare getting together. Greg Palmer is spun around on pit road. It is absolute bedlam on the pit lane right now. And again, no caution going to come out for that because of the fact that it was deemed off the racing surface. It was down on the apron, pit road entry, so no caution will waive, and there's going to be a bunch of drivers that are not going to come out on the other side of this green flag pit stop cycle in good shape. I want to go back and take a look at a replay of what happened there. Let's do that as we're waiting for everybody to get all shuffled up here and figure out where everybody's going to cycle in terms of positioning. Looks like Ron Hagelin in the 111 has been hit with a speeding penalty. That's another thing, too, for a number of these drivers that may have gotten swept into. Did they end up getting forced past pit road speed? Let's focus on the 28 of Mark Paglia, because he's the one I saw get spun into the group. Does he get a hit from behind? Yep, right there. Graham McDonald tags him. He goes down into Nofsker, and then there was Shelton, Hewlick, Sandoval, Paglia. Joe DeSpirito, I think, was right behind that. And we've got a caution. Caution's out. Yellow flag is out. Looks like it might have been the 143 of Bob Dixon. So we unfortunately missed that that incident. I wanted to go back and look at the pit road incident. But Bob Dixon, he was around over in the entrance of turn number 3. So we'll go back and see what brought out the caution. Then we'll go back and do a little bit more in-depth looking at what happened there with the pit road incident. This was on the back straightaway. Bob Dixon, Larry D, Terry Bombard. Looks like the 188 might have lost a gear or something, and Dixon might have been trying to help him. And they bumper grab off each other. Terry Bombard gets swept up in it. Mark Paglia. Oh, stopped right there in the middle of the racetrack. Oh my gosh, that is a scary area, because I think that was the leaders right there that were going by. So caution out. Looks like not only Ron Hagelin, but Mark Paglia got hit with a black flag speeding penalty, and no wonder for the 28, because I think he slid across the commitment line at over 55 miles per hour. We're going to go back and see a couple more angles of what went down there on pit road. This caution saves a bunch of people, I do believe. Let's see. After the caution waived, it looked like 24 drivers were on the lead lap. I believe Josh Metallic, Kelly Causey are currently in the free pass positions. I think a number of drivers may end up falling a lap down because they got 30-second penalties. A number of drivers got swept out into the grass and would have more than likely been hit with what would have been considered an unsafe pit entry. Watch the 9 of Jessica Shelton here, as she, I believe, catches some air. Left side of your screen, there's Paglia, and, oh, wow, yeah. When the 28 got into the 23, it shot Shelton into the air. Richard Martin, I saw back there, he was in this one. Kelly Causey. We're going to take some onboards. Let's start first with the 00 of Kelly Causey, who was running, I believe, in the 6th position at the time. Watch this. And then right here, he's going to see a gap, going to see an opening. Tries to get the thing turned around. He saw Josh Metallic, John Godfrey in the grass. I believe with going in the grass there, that's why Kelly Causey got the 30-second penalty. How about one of our playoff contenders? Was right in the middle of that. Joe DeSpirito, what does he see? I think he's going to have Chuck McClure right beside him. So, and I think Brian Schilling's actually right beside him as well. So the other 3 playoff drivers all were in the middle of this. Oh no, Schilling stayed out the extra lap. Ooh, that was a big call for him. Spirito, woo! Hello, Kelly Causey. Hello, Jessica Shelton. Driving through pit stalls and everything. It's a good thing that we don't have legitimate crew members down there on pit road, because I think we would have had some of them get hit. And there you see Chuck McClure pulling into his pit stall. Those two. No damage, no contact. Everything happened around them. Jeffries was on pit road the lap before. And Schilling stayed out. So bring you back to live. Brian Schilling is going to inherit the race lead after all is said and done. Joe DeSpirito will be in second. Then Mobbs, Ricky, and it looks like Jeremy Jeffries would end up being the top 5. Bob Dixon has taken his car back behind the wall. He'll join Jason Scheck and JT Mayhew. That will leave us with 32 cars running. 24 of them currently on the lead lap. We're waiting to see officially who the 2 lucky dog drivers will be when they cross the line. Scoring had Josh Metallic and Kelly Causey. But we'll wait for the confirmation on that. You'll see your lucky dogs pulling up alongside the pace car here at the 1 to green and getting their laps back. So 3 of our 4 playoff contenders inside of the top 5, and all 4 of them inside of the top 10 for this upcoming restart. Chuck McClure will be in 9th once we get back green. Timing of this caution very interesting, in the fact that we're more than likely going to get the 1 to green this time by. Green flag would fly at the completion of lap 41 onto 42. These drivers then projected would be somewhere in the region of 3 to 5 laps short on fuel. Now, we've already seen what 1 green flag pit stop has done in terms of the chaos of the entrance of pit road. These drivers have to make another pit stop, then they are going to probably be on pins and needles with what they saw right there. People in the chat saying maybe the biggest wreck that they've seen at the entrance of pit road, and I would have to agree. It's about one of the biggest fields we've seen come to pit road at a time as well. I mean, I think only maybe 2 drivers had stayed out and didn't come to pit road that lap. We'd had about 4 or 5 drivers on pit road prior to that. So we're talking upwards of about 25 drivers that we're all trying to get to pit road there. 2, 3, 4 wide. It may look easy from the spectator point of view, but I guarantee you, you don the helmet, you get behind the wheel, and it's nerve-wracking. It's like 4 wide traffic on the highway. You saw right there, confirmation. Josh Metallic, Kelly Causey going around getting their laps back. So we will have 26 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. The drivers that will be hoping for another yellow and to be in the top 2 of drivers lap down to be in the free pass position now would include pole sitter Greg Palmer, Ulysses Sandoval, Cy Jones, Larry D, and Mark Paglia. Terry Bombard is 2 laps down to the leaders. Well, we got the opportunity. We're past the halfway point. Let's bring you up to speed on your lap leaders here tonight. Greg Palmer has had the most circuits out in front, 13 laps led after starting on the pole position. Donnie Garrett, the only other driver that's led double-digit laps tonight with 10. 5 laps led so far for current race leader Brian Schilling. Chuck McClure has been out in front for 4 laps. 3 laps led for Josh Metallic. And then 1 lap led apiece for the following drivers: Joe DeSpirito, Dante Ricky, Chris Emery, Bob Seminara, Tom Dixon. So, out of our 4 playoff contenders, only 1 of them has not led a lap here tonight. That would be the 1 car of Jeremy Jeffries. We'll see how aggressive he is here on this restart to maybe get that bonus point and basically negate the bonus points accumulated by the other 3 drivers of the final 4. Well, Brian Schilling, he's been in the conversation for a victory the last couple of weeks. Now he wants to pick up that victory here tonight, carry those maximum points into next week's season finale as he gets us back underway. Joe DeSpirito alongside of him. Doesn't look like Bernie Mobbs got that good of a restart, so Schilling is going to get caught out. On the outside line there is Joe DeSpirito and Dante Ricci with that momentum. Mobbs now gets to the bumper of the Kodak Film Chevrolet Lumina, but too little too late. DeSpirito is clear for the top position. Dante Ricci will look to clear into second. Donnie Garrett, who's led the most laps here tonight, third in that outside line. How about the Blue Angels here tonight? Jerm Lewis, Chris Emery back on the grid. And right now, Chris Emery running solidly up inside of the top 5, taking the 4th position away from the 4 of Brian Schilling. Kind of ironic, too. Jeremy Jeffries, Rodney Sullins, they're battling it out for that bracket championship. They were nose to tail on that restart, remain nose to tail. Currently around the 7th and 8th positions, respectively. Third lane forming up there. That looks like that's Doug Hewlick and then a couple of the lap machines. Ulysses Sandoval and Tom Dixon trying to get themselves up into free pass spots. They'd be looking for the 22 of Greg Palmer, who right now is the first car 1 lap down. Sandoval is the second car 1 lap down, so they would be currently in the free pass spots should we get another yellow flag. As Joe DeSpirito out in front. DeSpirito, of course, was almost a shoo-in to advance into the playoffs, had that streak the entirety of the regular season, finished inside of the top 5 every single race. He also finished inside of the top 5 in the first playoff race, and then the streak came to a close, but maybe one of the longest consistent streaks in terms of top 5s accumulated in the Tally Challenge. DeSpirito would eventually go back to victory lane again to lock himself into this round of 4. And now, looking to pick up what would be his second win of his career in the final round of the playoffs ever since we've had the 2 races final round system. He ended up winning the regular season finale 1 season ago. And it was funny, in that race, he had had a tough run at Burt Screwdriver's Raceway, the first race of that round of 4, and thought he was out of the hunt for the championship. He was looking to win the bracket challenge that night, and came up just 1 point short of getting the championship from Richard Martin. We talked to him during that night, and he said, I didn't even know I was still in the hunt. Well, he knows he's in the hunt here this season, and we mentioned season 54, last time that Joe DeSpirito, a multi-time champion of the series, hoisted his last championship trophy down in victory lane. But look at some of these names up here inside of the top 5. Dante Ricci, a former winner on the season. Donnie Garrett there in the 77, who's been up in the conversation for victories multiple times here this season. Chris Emery. Emery has never had a Tally Challenge victory, but he does have a Super Speedway victory in RTG. I believe it was back in the Bare Bones Racing Series a few seasons ago. So he knows how to get it done at the Super Speedways. He's just not yet been able to pick up that first career victory in this specific series. Brian Schilling, after leading us back to green, has slotted himself into the 5th position. Chuck McClure has made his way down to the bottom of the racetrack. He and Jeremy Jeffries trying to make their way forward. They were scored in 9th and 10th last time by. But all 4 drivers still up here in the conversation for this race victory. You gotta wonder with the timing of that yellow if we had, I don't necessarily think, I'm double checking here, I don't think any of our final 4 came back to pit road under that caution period. Most of them had been only 1 or 2 laps removed from coming to pit lane, so they wanted the track position. So I don't think that there's going to really be any gamesmanship here if we have this final pit stop under green of drivers being able to stay out an extra 2 laps past the rest of their competition. The one thing I am a little bit concerned about here for Joe DeSpirito is, yes, he is leading all these laps right now, but he's using up more fuel. He's going to have to be one of the first ones onto pit road. So also calls into the question in terms of strategy, how much time do you want to spend on pit lane? Because you could do one of two different things. Based off the calculations here, nobody's going to be able to save the at least 3 laps of fuel that they're lacking. They're all going to have to come to pit road before this one is over. But do you maybe, based off of what you just saw, that big wreck on pit road entry, do you maybe decide, you know, right now I'm projected a splash 3 laps short, but I'm going to come to pit road when the window opens to make it on a half can, take my pit stop then and there, maybe come down with a smaller group of drivers and don't run the risk of part 2 of a big wreck on the entrance of pit road and get swept up in it? Or do you wait till the very last moment? I mean, I don't think it's possible. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Grant Wesley school of clutching would tell me I'm incorrect because we've seen him do it before in the past. I don't think that if you get a caution at the point of no return, I don't know, can you save 3 laps of fuel under the pacing period to get back around to the checkered flag? Maybe. I don't think if you're Joe DeSpirito you can, if you're out in front this long. But, you know, you look at Brian Schilling there and Chuck McClure and Jeremy Jeffries. They've got the benefit of the draft. Could they, if we get a caution at the point of no return and know the race is going to end under yellow, can they make it? Can they save enough? I mean, you're talking about over 7 miles of fuel that you're trying to save there. I don't know. Maybe it is possible. Inside line is starting to gain more and more cars. Looks like they are making some progress. Bernie Mobbs has jumped down there to join Chuck McClure and Jeremy Jeffries. Rodney Sullins is down there also, so some fast machines. But it doesn't look like, it looks like they're kind of just holding stationary there with Brian Schilling. I wonder if Schilling's saving. Look at the gap he's got. About a car length ahead to Chris Emery, and then about a car length behind to Tim Nofsker. That says to me that Brian Schilling, he'll get the run on the 000 going into the corner, and then he throws in the clutch, and I'm wondering if there's... Alright, looks like we are back. Apologies for that. Some technical difficulties. But it's starting to get racy up here at the front. Chris Emery, Brian Schilling, Tim Nofsker made a charge on the inside line. They caught out Donnie Garrett and Dante Ricky. They now are going to work on Joe DeSpirito for the race lead. Emery to the top side. He'll get to the right rear of the 24. The Blue Angels are flying to the front. Emery to the point as you saw them going around the 00 of Kelly Causey. They'll put him a lap down. Causey had just gotten the free pass. You got to think that's got to be damage sustained from the earlier wreck on pit road. So Causey now falls back a lap down, and I don't think he's going to be in a lucky dog position either. But Chris Emery, can he get it done? Oop, we got a blinker back there. That was Richard Martin. He was down low, out of the way. About some of these names we got up here inside of our top 5 now. Glenn Harris into the 4th position. Graham McDonald in the 5th spot in only his 2nd start of the season. Good run for both of these drivers. And the question remains, could anybody have saved enough here to be able to make it the rest of the way? They're looking for 3 laps of fuel. At this point in time, I don't see how it's possible. But you never know. Joe DeSpirito, who got shuffled out from the lead, still the highest running playoff driver. He's been relegated back to 6th. Brian Schilling now side by side with Jessica Schulten. Ulysses Sandoval starting to get a middle lane formed. Good run for both of those drivers after they were swept up in the pit road entrance incident. Shelton actually had all 4 tires off the ground. Chuck McClure and Jeremy Jeffries have now migrated from the bottom up to the top, trying to make some forward progress here. And now Rodney Sullins will get alongside of Jeremy Jeffries. The battle for them for that bracket challenge continues. That's the one thing about super speedway racing. It doesn't matter if you're talking about drivers that are battling for the final spots in the playoffs, if you're talking about drivers that are battling for the final spots into the next round of the playoffs, drivers battling for the championship, or drivers that are battling in even just the mini-series that go on during the course of these bigger series. They always seem to find each other on the racetrack. Whether it be nose to tail, side by side, they always seem to find each other. Terry Bombard, update on the 10. We saw him off the pace after a big hit in our first caution of the night back on lap 14. He brought his car to pit road, and he has gone to the garage area. He'll get credited for 32nd place here tonight, joining Bob Dixon, Jason Scheck, and JT Mayhew behind the wall. I think we got some drivers pitting. This means that drivers would be coming down pit road and taking on a can of fuel with 10 laps to go. Who are those drivers that are pitting, though, is the question. Nobody up at the front. Oh, Chuck McClure in the 17. Interesting. And Brian Schilling in the 4. Couple of our final 4 playoff contenders coming in. Tim Knopfsker, Brian Ross, and Cy Jones going to join them. So now, does this force the hand of the other 2 playoff drivers in Jeremy Jeffries and Joe DeSpirito? Or are they going to run it out long and come down pit road at the last possible moment for a splash? I'll be honest, I think that call right there had everything to do with the pit road entrance incident that we had, and Graham McDonald is warping. Oh, that is not good. Here come the other 2 playoff drivers. DeSpirito and Jeffries are in. Chris Emery and Dante Ricky came in from the top 2 spots. Donnie Garrett, Jessica Shelton, Glenn Harris, Josh Metallic, Bernie Mobbs, Bobby Farrell, and Larry D. all on pit road. So interesting, nobody at least of our playoff contenders elected to go with the long strategy of coming down pit road for just a half can or maybe even just a splash. What about some of these drivers here that got nothing to lose that are going for the race win? Graham McDonald looks like he's gotten the connection gremlins dealt with. He just led the lap there. I believe that's his first lap led of the season. Lucy Sandoval right there with him. And here comes the 3rd group onto pit road. Rodney Sullins, Greg Palmer coming in, Jerm Lewis, John Godfrey, Bob Seminara, and Mark Paglia. That should turn the race lead over, I do believe, to the 54 of Robbie Nisus. Kelly Causey is a lap down. Doug Kulik now into 2nd. Dave Melson into 3rd. Tom Dixon in 4th. And Ron Hagelin is also a lap down, as is Cy Jones. So 4 lead lap cars up in this group. And it looks like maybe they're coming to pit road this time. You saw Melson get to the inside of the 23. Melson and Hewlick with a drag race to the commitment line. Dixon and Robbie Nisus hitting pit road. So the lead of this race may end up going to the 38 of Rodney Sullins, but there's a bunch of drivers back there that are up to speed, and they are slicing and dicing their way through. Dante Ricky, Chris Emery there. Jeremy Jeffries is leading a big group of cars. Whoa! Can't throw blocks like that. Oh my gosh, Jeremy Jeffries almost went around off the nose of Donnie Garrett as they came up on the slower car of Mark Paglia. This is when it's maybe the most nervous for drivers, the difference in speeds of drivers that are up to speed to drivers that are just getting up to speed. As Dante Ricky makes the move on Chris Emery, look out, we got some cars merging here off of turn 1. They're staying low as they're supposed to. And I believe Dante Ricky is going to cycle the lead. Oh, Dave Melson just got spun back there. The caution's out. Graham McDonald in the 33. Dave Melson, the 038. And Richard Martin in the 43 have all gone around. And you have to wonder, did that have anything to do with the cards merging off of pit road? The ruling is if you're coming off of pit lane, you have to stay on that inside line. Everybody else then has the responsibility with the 2 to 3 lanes above you of getting around you safely. As long as you stay down on the inside line next to that yellow line. And, oh, we got smoke up ahead here, I thought I just saw. Someone went around in turn 3. Bernie Mobbs is on pit road. It's also looking like the 33 of Graham McDonald might have gotten hit with a speeding penalty on that last pit stop. Robbie Nices, or I saw somebody else looked like they've been issued a black flag, but now that's not showing up on my scoring, so I'm not certain who it was. Let's go back and see what happened here. This is going to set us up for a restart that will be with less than 5 to go. And what exactly goes down? Oh, we had a flip. So there's Doug Kulik. He stays low and out of the way. Dave Melson's low, and... oh! He pushed up on the inside. Graham was going up the middle 3 wide, and gets up into Richard Martin. So it looked like everybody did what they were supposed to do there. Just the 038 got really tight on the inside of the racetrack. And some pretty big hits there for the 33 and the 43. Bernie Mobbs is out of the race. I think he might have had something happen, been the car that had something happen over in turn 3 here. Oh, man, Graham McDonald up and over. Richard Martin gets on the brakes. Ooh, he almost grip flipped right there. And then let's find the 31. Oh, there's the 31. What happens to him? Oh, right there. The engine. Now, it looked like you saw the car bogged down. I don't know if he accidentally downshifted or was trying to throw in the clutch, but whatever it was, you saw the black smoke coming out from underneath the sit-go machine. Let's go on board with him. Let's see if we can hear anything. Well, tough break there for Bernie Mobbs. I believe we are back again. Apologies for what is happening. There's got to be some internet connection problems going on here on my end. Hopefully that doesn't happen here in the closing stages, because we're in for what should be a very interesting finish. If it didn't show up on the broadcast there, we did the onboard with Rodney Sullins. Looks like he was in 3rd gear. The thing was revving out. He had not yet upshifted to 4th gear, and when he did, that's when the engine went south. So Bernie Mobbs will get credit for 31st place here tonight, the 5th retiree out of this one. Joining Terry Bombard, Bob Dixon, Jason Scheck, and JT Mayhew. Scoring showed Mark Paglia and Greg Palmer as the 2 drivers to get the lucky dogs. So we should have 26 drivers back on the lead lap when we go back green. You see the lights are still on the Chevrolet Corvette pace car. So what was originally, if the lights had gone out, going to be a 4-lap or a 3-lap shootout, now looks like it might end up being a green-white checkered, in regulation green-white checkered. And we've seen a couple of those here this season. We've seen some 1-lap shootouts, we've seen some green-white checkers. And take a look at who we got up here at the front. We got non-playoff drivers. Dante Ricky and Donnie Garrett. Dante looking for his 2nd win of the season. Donnie looking for his 1st. Right in the middle of that, Joe DeSpirito, playoff contender, the highest running of them, currently in 3rd. Chris Emery, who had a great charge there. just before that caution came out. Right now in the 4th spot, Jessica Shelton up here in P5. Good run for her. Rodney Sullins right now has the upper hand on Jeremy Jeffries. They're still in the same line together, nose to tail, but this time Sullins has Jeffries in his rearview mirror. Sullins has to finish ahead of Jeffries tonight to keep his chances alive of winning the bracket challenge. If Jeremy finishes ahead of him, then Jeremy clinches the bracket challenge championship. Josh Metallic right now, great run in that 39 car as he's in the 7th position for the upcoming restart. Jeremy Jeffries, we already documented, he's in 8th. Glenn Harris now in 9th, and Bob Seminara is in the 10th position. If you're wondering where are the other 2 playoff drivers, they are way back in the pack. The big reason being they went with the strategy of coming to pit road early. They needed everybody to cycle around to maybe get their way to the front of the field, but the caution coming out when it did, when really the whole field hadn't yet all conglomerated back up again, put them way deep in the field for this upcoming restart. Chuck McClure is going to be back in 20th, Brian Schilling in 23rd. This is the type of a scenario where you are thanking your lucky stars that it is a 2-race final round. Because if this had been a one-and-done race, it's very unlikely that in 2 laps, either McClure or Schilling would be able to make their way up through the field to the front, or at the very least be able to make their way up there into the same vicinity as Joe DeSpirito and Jeremy Jeffries. They're going to have one more week to be able to work on gaining back any points that they may lose here tonight. And they may not lose points. This is a 2-lap shootout. We could end up having something happen during this green-white checkered where DeSpirito and Jeffries are caught up in it, and McClure and Schilling might be in the catbird seat to make their way through the wreck. So it's a never-say-never type scenario until the checkered flag waves. And sometimes, on some occasions, not even then. Oh no, Brian Schilling right here, you see on the top right. The engine is gone on the 4 car. Second mechanical failure we've had in the last 10 minutes, and this one involves one of our final 4 competitors. So a bad scenario goes worse for the former champion, the most recent champion of the final 4 competitors. He's going to bring it back to pit road. I don't know what he can salvage out of all this. He's going to have to hope the other 3 playoff drivers have an issue here in this final 5.2 miles on this restart. Again, your usual disclaimer. We will stay with the race leaders the entirety of the run, whether they're racing back to the caution or racing back to the official checkered flag. Any incidents that we have to look at via replay, we will do after the race is concluded. And it's looking like Brian Schilling just got hit with a black flag for dropping debris. Hopefully that gets cleared. That's certainly nothing that he can control, as I believe he's coming to pit road. But bringing us back to the green. Green-white checkered. It's Dante Ricky in the Wawa number 84 Buick. Green flag back in the air. Can they make it back around to the white? Is the question, and no, they will not be able to. As Tim Knopfsker and Robbie Nisus got together at the rear of the field. We're racing back to the caution, technically racing back to the checkered flag. Dante Ricky going to have to throw some blocks. Here comes the middle line with Donnie Garrett. He's got a push from Chris Emery. Emery now going to go up to the outside line with Rodney Sullins. Ricky guards the bottom against Donnie. Chris Emery, big run there. He'll get to the right rear quarter panel of Donnie Garrett. Can he get enough of a push, though, through the tri-oval to get to Dante Ricky? Oh, we got a flip in the back. That's Brian Rawson. As coming to the caution and the white flag, it's Dante Ricky who's going to lead them to the stripe. Garrett will cross in second. And jury's out on who got third between Emery and DeSpirito. Looks like scoring saying it was Emery bringing it home in the 3rd spot. Whoa, look out. Oh, no. Jerm Lewis just spun around trying to slow, getting into Rodney Sullins. Rodney's going to hit the inside wall. He should be able to get his spot back, though. And if scoring is correct, scoring had Rodney crossing the line in 5th and Jeremy Jeffries in 7th. So Rodney survives to move on to face Jeremy Jeffries next week for the bracket championship. We had a couple of incidents there. One that initially brought out the caution, and then another one off of turn 4 through the tri-oval that saw Brian Rawson get airborne. Looks like Jerm Lewis crossed the line in 12th, but after the contact we saw right there between him and the 38, it looks like he's actually retired out of the race, so some drivers behind him will move up a spot. But Dante Ricky, oh wait, what is going on there? Okay, I didn't know if he was looking like he was coming to pit road. That was getting a little confusing. All right, so Dante Ricky, he's going to be a multi-time winner on the season. Part-time capacity, I think this is only the 3rd or 4th start he's made this season. So he's either got himself a 50% or a 66.6% winning ratio here this season in the starts that he's made. And here tonight, he is going to be the second non-playoff driver to win a race in the final round of the playoffs. As he crosses the line, checker flag waves. Dante Ricky is your winner here tonight at Talladega. If this had been a one-and-done race season finale, Joe DeSpirito would be your Season 61 champion, but that is not the case. We got one more race left to decide it all. Dante Ricky getting the congratulatory bumps there. Seems like every week we have one driver that spins out the race winner. Do we have any contestants here in this one? There's Brian Schilling. Engine gone and all. Oh, looks like we're not even going to get a burnout from Dante here tonight. So with that being said, we'll go back and take a look at the replay of what brought out this race-ending yellow. And this was literally at the beginning of the final restart. The contact was between the 088 of Tim Novsker and the 54 of Robbie Nisus. Here's a look at it here as, oh, it looks like 54 might have lost a gear or missed a shift. And Tim Novsker got into the back of him. Graham McDonald also went around. See how the 33 got involved. Looks like he got clipped by the 088. Just barely, so too did Greg Palmer. Mark Pagley got a small piece. And that was the caution that ended this race. Made things difficult for the drivers back behind Dante to be able to generate a run. You usually need that one lap to get the cars up to full song and then utilize that momentum on the final lap. I guess the fortunate thing is we've had in the past where wrecks will take place bringing out the caution off of turn 4, and there's just absolutely no time for a driver to be able to make a move then. At least they did have over 2 miles to work with in this, even though they didn't really probably get up to full song until they got into turn 3. Now let's take a look and see what happened off of turn 4 to the 6 of Brian Rawson, because that car caught quite a bit of air. And it looks like they got really tight off of turn 4. Watch here as we go back to turn 3. Chuck McClure slicing his way up the middle in between Tom Dixon and Brian Rawson, and then, oh, right there, up the track and into the 6. Ron Hagelin also collected up as the 6 of Brian Rawson almost kind of looks like one of those Beyblade tops. Continues to spin around. You also saw Tom Dixon went up and hit the outside wall through the center of the tri-oval. There's Ron Hagelin, who I'm pretty certain hit the inside wall right near the pit road entry and then came back up the track. We'll take a look at the hit that he sustained. And then we'll take a look at the Tom Dixon hit as well. I think Tom gets into the grass. Oh, hits with the back end of the car there, just Hagelin. Yeah, Tom gets in the grass, and oh man, that thing just shot back up the racetrack straight head on into the wall. Dave Melson and Mark Paglia making their way through. There's no lift at that point because you know you're racing back to the caution, and you see the spun out race cars, that's positions that you're able to gain. Watch the hit here for Tom Dixon. Gets hit by Cy Jones. He's in the grass, trying to save it. Overcorrects back up, and big hit with the right front of the Batmobile. And that was all after the caution had waved and they were racing back to the start-finish line. Well, race standings should be official at this point in time. Let's take a look at what they look like here. Dante Ricci with the victory, Donnie Garrett in second, and Chris Emery in third. Non-playoff drivers sweep the podium here tonight. We'll be talking with them in just a few moments. Joe DeSpirito will be the highest finishing of the final four. Brings it home in the fourth position. Rodney Sullins, he will move on to face Jeremy Jeffries in a rematch next week for the bracket championship as he completes top five. Jessica Shelton, solid run in sixth after she had that big hit on pit road entry, middle portion of the race. Jeremy Jeffries brings it home in seventh, so this should put him second overall of the final four heading into next week. I believe Jeremy still did not lead a lap. No, he did not. So with 3 positions up and 1 bonus point, Joe DeSpirito should have 4 points up on Jeremy Jeffries. Josh Metallic brings it home in 8th. Glenn Harris, good run in 9th. And Bob Seminaro will bring it home with a solid top 10 run. Doug Hewlick, good run in 11th. Bobby Farrell in 12th. John Godfrey, 13th. Chuck McClure fought his way up to 14th place here tonight. Kelly Causey completing the top 15. That's a good comeback for him because remember, he got the lucky dog, got put a lap down again, got the lucky dog again. Brings it home with a solid outing there inside of the top 15. Tom Dixon, after that big hit into the wall, still brings it home in 16th. Greg Palmer was 17th with Mark Paglia, Dave Melson, and Brian Rawson. Even though that thing was spinning around like a top, it landed back on all 4 wheels, and he crossed the line to receive the caution in 20th place. Tim Nofsker, Graham McDonald, Robbie Nisus, and Brian Schilling were the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. Schilling did finish the race under power, even though the engine was badly smoking, but he will be the furthest of the final 4 competitors as far as the deficit to the points leader heading into next week. He's going to need a good run, maybe a must-win situation for Brian Schilling to get yet another championship in this series. Jerm Lewis saw the contact on the cool-down lap there after receiving the caution between him and Rodney Sullins. He parked the car and finishes 25th. 5 drivers, 1 lap down. Ron Hagelin, Ulysses Sandoval, Richard Martin, Cy Jones, and Larry D. And then 5 drivers out of the race along with Jerm Lewis. They would be Bernie Mobbs, Terry Bombard, Bob Dixon, Jason Scheck, and JT Mayhew. Well, a crazy one here tonight to open up this final round of the playoffs. Looks like, at least for the moment, it's Joe DeSpirito versus Jeremy Jeffries. Chuck McClure and Brian Schilling not getting quite the runs they were looking for. They will look to bounce back next week. Still anybody's game, though, because superspeedways are unpredictable. You do not know how things may potentially play out at the conclusion of next week. Remember, go back to 1 season ago. Joe DeSpirito was a long ways back points-wise. Didn't think he had a shot for the championship and finished 1 point short. So it is not over for McClure or Schilling by any stretch of the imagination. But now as we head into our FRN post-race wind-down, let's dial up our podium finishers here this evening. How about we talk with the guy that brings it home for his first podium of the season? He was up there in the conversation all night long. Let's dial up the 000 of Chris Emery.
User was moved.
Hey, Chris, it's Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got me?
Hey, what's up, Seth?
Well, man, I'll tell you what. You got Blue Angels as a sponsor on that car, and this had the speed of a fighter jet, I believe, because we saw you up there in the top 5 consistently, fighting for the lead on several occasions, and made some good moves there on that final run to what eventually was the checkered flag under caution. Was there anything else you could have done to be able to get that 1 spot better, or was second place the furthest you could get with just the allotted amount of time?
Well, during those green flag pit stops there at the end, I overshot my pit and probably lost a second or 2, and that's how I lost the lead because I came in with it. But I lost it to Dante and then try to probably make a bad move there too. But it's a tough pill to swallow, not gonna lie. I put a lot of years into this thing to win these races that have come so close, but it's really fun when you finally get a good finish, and yeah, able to show what I can do. So I'm really glad with my finish, and I'm also glad with people that helped me tonight. I was really appreciative of that, and yeah, it was a great race. I had a good time.
Obviously, as we get closer towards the end of the season, the playoff grid gets smaller, so the ratio of non-playoff drivers to playoff drivers hugely in favor of the non-playoff drivers. We saw yourself and two other non-playoff drivers sweep the podium here tonight. How difficult is it for you as a driver, especially at this type of a portion of the season? You know that there's other drivers around you that are battling for the championship. At the same time, though, everybody, as soon as they take the green flag, they want to be the first one back to the checkers. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, I always try and race everybody clean, man, the same whether they're in a championship or not. So, they always get my best here. That's at least that's what I try and show, and that's all I can hope for in return as well. And here at RTG, I really have a good time. Sometimes it gets to me, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm just thankful to be racing here with a lot of my friends that I've been racing with a long time. So
Well, a really good run for you here tonight. Very strong car. Probably in the second half of this race, the car that was making the most moves up there inside of the top 10. You bring it home with a solid outing of third place here tonight. Congratulations on the performance. And before we let you go, we'll give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
thanks. Yeah, yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes before to know kind of what not to do and what to do, and hopefully I'm getting a little bit better at it. But yeah, I want to say shout out to the Blue Angels, man. uh, You know, top of the line there as far as navigation and performance. And so I want to thank them and the Navy and everybody in our armed forces. And I want to thank everybody here at RTG for letting me race and racing me clean and racing me fair. And also want to thank Germ. Germ is a great friend of mine. He lets me come over here and set my computer up and race with him. And he's a great friend. And man, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Dante, good race, man. You so fast all the time. It's really hard to beat you. But and the Donnie, he outrun me tonight. And yeah, man. And thank you, Seth, for bringing me up here. I finally got a chance to come up here and talk to you. So that's really cool, man. So thanks for hosting these races online. And yeah, everybody at RTG. Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Chris Emery, third place performance here tonight at Talladega Super Speedway. Congratulations on the great run this evening, Chris. And hopefully, if we see you next week in the final race of the season, we can see you get those two positions better and park this thing in victory lane.
Yeah, hopefully so. Thank you, Seth.
Chris
User
Emery,
was moved out of
part-time
your
capacity
channel.
here this season. Tonight marked his sixth race of the season, and his best finish by far, his previous best finish was 18th, and that was back in the latter portion of January. Let's see if we can now dial up the driver that brings it home in the second position, and that would be the number 77 of Donnie Garrett.
User was moved
Hey,
to
Donnie,
your
Seth up here
channel.
in the FRM booth. You got me?
I got you, brother. How you doing?
Doing good. You had a strong car here tonight. Third most laps led, 10 circuits out in front. We saw you make your way up there to the front very early on in the going as well. You didn't exactly have the benefit of a good qualifying position, but that didn't really seem to hinder you at all. Fast machine up inside of the top five in the closing stages as well. I seem to ask this whenever we end up having these type of races where we have a potential green-white checkered, but that last lap runs under caution. If you'd had that final lap, did you have anything for the 84 to be the one in victory lane?
I did. I was trying to get with the to the 24, and either I was going to push him or he was going to push me, and then we were going to make it happen. But man, when that caution come out, it just kind of screwed everything, and everybody just kind of every man for himself at that point. And I pulled down there to try to pull Joe on up through there, but yeah, man, yeah, I would have liked to have that 2 laps to see what would have happened.
We saw here this evening as well, pit road as usual playing a factor, but maybe I can't really recall that big of a wreck at pit road entry in recent memory as we had here tonight. I gotta ask because my calculations up here might have been incorrect. I had you guys being able to make it somewhere in the vicinity of about 5 laps to go. Looks like just about everyone's general consensus was coming to pit road when the window opened to pit and take on a can of fuel. Was any of that in potentiality because of what we had had on the previous green flag pit stop, drivers trying to come down maybe a less congested pit road, or did it look like everybody was right out of the gate when you guys took the green flag for what was the next to last restart that you were going to be coming down at the 10 to go mark?
Yeah, I was listening, and a lot of guys were at the end. I needed a full tank because I was up front and I led those laps in that portion of the race. So I used more fuel, of course, than everybody when you're out front. And I led, I think there was 10 or 11 laps there. And when I came down, I was tempted to take a half a can. If I knew that call, if I knew that caution would have come out, I would have. But there were some guys that were going to take a half a can that had pitted after us, so I was about 6.5, 7 laps short. So I had to take a can. And but there was a lot. I heard a lot of jabbering back there behind me. Guys saying, "Oh yeah, I can do it. I can do it on a half. I can do it on a half." But those guys were the ones that waited and stayed out a little bit.
Okay, so my projections would have been a little bit off there. So that makes more sense that everybody coming to pit road when they did, if they would have been around the 5 to 6 short of making it to the checkered flag. Obviously, we've seen the last couple of weeks. You've had this car up there at the front in the closing stages. Next week, what do you think? We get this one position better, have the 77 victory lane? Because it seems like every time I look up in the closing stages, especially the last month or so, you've been up there in the conversation for this one.
Yeah, just try not to ruin anybody's race. At this point, I'm a respectful driver, and some people are probably laughing at that right now. But I try to be a respectful driver to the championship contenders, and but still want to win. I'm here to win, and I want to try to get that checker flag. And so yeah, I think one more position next week ought to do it. And yeah, like I say tonight, like I said, just that one lap, and then a couple weeks ago, I made a bonehead move and jumped the damn restart, and I did it. I didn't mean to do it, but I did, and I would have been in the chase, if it wasn't for that. And then, look at tonight, I could be going for a championship next week. So, it is what it is. But we'll get them. We'll get them next season.
Well, a great run for you here this evening, Donnie, bringing it home on the podium in second place. Congratulations on a job well done overall in the race here tonight. And before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Well, guy, thank you for just putting on an amazing race. Um, broadcast and all the admins, owners over here at RTG. Rodney Sullins for these great paint jobs that he continues to pop out. I got to give a shout out to Landon and Jackson tonight. They're watching. That's my niece's boys, and I got to give a special shout out to my son, who Hunter, who's 23 yesterday. So happy birthday, that old boy. And but yeah, just like I say, man, one's position short here tonight, and Rossi's already here at the house looking in the windows, and I'm going to go out here and do a couple of talks. But yeah, we'll get them next week. I think we're gonna try to win one next week. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. We'll be looking forward to seeing you try and get this 77, that one position better, end out the season with a checkered flag. Donnie Garrett, your second place finisher here tonight at Talladega. Well done, Donnie, and best of luck next week.
Thank you, buddy. Woo!
Donnie
User
Garrett,
was moved
much
out
like
of your
Chris Emery
channel.
here tonight, bringing it home in his best finishing position on the season. And he finishes runner up to this driver here tonight, who now is one of multiple multi-time winners on the season. Let's see if we can dial up Dante Ricky.
Buddy was moved
Hey,
to your
Dante, stepped up
channel.
here in the FRM booth. You got me?
Hello, Seth.
Well, I'll tell you what, part-time capacity here this season, but hey, 40% winning ratio, that's not too bad here in the 5 starts you've made. Now, I was just looking over the statistics. I think I found the winning combination for you. In order to win, you have to lead 8 laps, because the last time we talked with you back in January, you led 8 laps as well. But man, great restart, able to hold them off there. If they had that extra lap, though, did you have a strategy to keep them in the rearview mirror?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Seth. When it's your night, it's your night. Now, what's interesting is right from the beginning, I started mid pack and I wanted to kind of work my way up to the front as soon as possible. There were times that people would make moves to try and help out a teammate or a friend, and I would always make the opposite move. Someone went high, I would go to the bottom. but the lead car in those situations would also protect their position. The long story short was I got in the top 5 and I made it a goal of mine, let alone a privilege. You have to work hard to stay there in this particular league, to stay in the top 5 for the night. And by doing that, that allowed me to be in a position where I had a lot more within my control near the end of the race in the sense of where I would finish, how I would get there, you know. So coming down to that final restart, of course, we were all joking around and chatting, don't jump the start because, of previous events in NASCAR and other things. So we're all holding that 70, 71, 70, hold it, green light comes on. And I didn't want to get the greatest start, but I also wanted to at least try to even the lanes out. And I know that there's some championship contenders back there. Joe, he drove a heck of a race, man. He was up front with me, and we were pushing really well. I would continue to shove through the cars in front of me aggressively. I was rather aggressive tonight with the pushing, and there were a lot of times that could have gone wrong, to say the least. But I will say that I think the majority of the race, aside from leading 8 laps and finishing in first, I think I was behind the race leading car in like much of the time, and that's what, to me, it was just a matter of staying square, staying focused, and making sure the pushes were right. Pit stops, my goodness, if we see some disaster on pit road tonight. I really like how we split the groups up, but man, one little thing really impacts the race. I mean, I go in the pit road and I actually on both green flag pit stops, I was real conservative on my lockup entry on the first green flag pit stop. And on the second one, I came in right with Chris Emery. I actually gave him a little rope because I couldn't remember or recall where he was pitted. And I still, both times, I come out of the pit road by myself. And for those of you at home, that's not necessarily a good thing in a super speedway race because the people who don't get that good pit stop are now in the pack and they're going to come by at 10 mile an hour or greater. Well, me and Chris were still reasonably close coming out on the last pit stop. I will say this, the timing of when we caught the other cars exiting was interesting. For those 2 laps before the last caution, I had absolutely no idea what lane of the track we were in whatsoever. The cars on the track couldn't pick a lane. I wanted to pick a lane to defend my lane, and Chris followed me. Thank God he did, because if he didn't, we probably would have had a major stack up crash when the rest of the pack caught. But sometimes no communication or lack of communication is the right thing to do. Sometimes it's not the right thing to do. And I think that for everyone at home, it's hard to understand that the communications that go on in the race are extensive. Some of them are in the open chat, some of them are in the whisper. And the whole idea is to try and get yourself in a position, combined with strategy, to be in the right place at the right time.
You brought up about the fact there with that pit road incident, you had the fortunate positioning of being the leader, so a lot of that took place behind you, helping you to be able to not be swept up into it. I want to talk about driver mentality here as we get closer towards the end of the season because, it's obviously well documented when the playoffs begin. We have at least 12, sometimes 13, 14, 15 drivers, depending on how the point scenarios and wins play out in terms of who we have battling for the championship or not. So, not necessarily half, but maybe about a third of the field are playoff contenders. We get closer towards the end of the season. We keep having eliminations. We're down to our final 4. Here tonight, I think I saw a slight difference in driver mentality in terms of the aggressive level because we end up having only 4 playoff contenders and a lot of drivers that are not battling for the championship. You mentioned here tonight that you were aggressive. Is a big portion of that maybe one or two of these things, maybe a combination of both? The fact that we're getting down towards the end of the season, a lot of drivers are trying to get that checkered flag in these final 2 races, or just the fact as well, they don't have the championship looming over them anymore if they were a former playoff contender. So now they can go out there and they can kind of treat this as if this is the first race of the season and they're trying to win their way into the playoffs. They're just trying to be that first one back to the start finish line, basically laser focused now, not having to worry about too many things.
Well, there's 2 worlds there, Seth. There's the people who need to win to advance, then there's the people who need to be consistent to advance, because the difference between 42 and 48 points, it could be a nothing difference for somebody who just needs to finish good, but it could be a world of difference for someone who doesn't have a win and gets bumped out because another driver won. And it all depends on who's in your proximity. Are your competitors nearby, or do you have an aggressive blocker? For example, Dante Ricky blocking Grant Wesley a year ago in the trucks. And in that situation, Grant needs to advance. He can't get himself caught into a situation out of his own hands. So you also have to realize that the situation could potentially be in your own hands. And sometimes you allow the mercy of other drivers who are aggressive. Sometimes you have to put your foot down. You have to make the move yourself. So there's really two different logics there. And I will say this, I knew that there were many drivers who were going to go try and pull out for a win there coming to the end of the race. It would have been very difficult considering the way that the pack was double wide on the last lap, where to go and which lane to pick. Because if anybody pulls to the top at that point, the bottom line is going to take the advantage with how neck and neck they were.
Yeah, we saw during the course of the evening, it looked like, depending on momentum, both lanes, inside and middle line, were able to work pretty well here this evening. You yourself able to get both lanes to work to eventually fight your way back up to the front. But Dante, a great victory for you here tonight. You join the list of drivers that have multiple wins on the season here in season 61 and just the limited number of starts that you've made. Before we let you get back to your celebrating, no, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and
Yes.
shoutouts.
And I want to clarify real quickly. Right when the race finished, we had about 10 to 15 people fall out of the server. So that's why we were not able to do the victory donut and park the car in the trioval. Sorry, we didn't get to do that. But beside the point, thank you to friends and family, my mom, dad, brother, sister, everyone here at Charleston, West Virginia, and everyone back in New Jersey. It's cheering me on. It's always a good time, and we don't run a lot of races. But the other secret is the Wawa car has finished as a first, and third on the season. That's the other thing to take away from this compared to the Canada Dry Chevrolet. But either way, Rodney Solins, man, he does a great job painting the cars. I don't thank him enough. He is working hard. He really is, and it was a real honor to be able to race with Joe tonight as well.
Well, Dante Ricky, second victory on the season here tonight at Talladega Super Speedway as he puts that number 84 in victory lane. Congratulations on the great run here tonight. Great restart, great defense there, coming around to what was eventually the race-ending caution. Go enjoy this one, Dante.
Thanks, Seth, and good job there to Donnie and Chris on the top three finishes.
Absolutely. That's Dante Ricky. He is your winner
Buddy
here
was moved
tonight.
out
He
of your
becomes the
channel.
fourth different repeat winner on the season, joining Chuck McClure, Grant Wesley, and Joe DeSpirito. Well, it's going to be interesting to see the fallout of this race here tonight, how it plays into setting the table for next week's finale in terms of the championship. The point standings are in. Again, a big thank you to the admins there at RTG. They always make sure that the points are in for us to be able to give you scenarios at the beginning of the season, middle portion of the season, elimination playoff races, and of course, here tonight, Joe DeSpirito going to be the points leader, 4 points as I expected over Jeremy Jeffries. Chuck McClure sits 10 points back in third, and Brian Schilling 20 points back in fourth. Now, obviously, there will more than likely be more than 20 cars taking the green flag next week, but you have to think that 20 points back with only one race to go, Brian Schilling may be having to go into next week's race at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway in a must-win situation mentality. It will be interesting to see how it all plays out. But those 4 drivers, they still got one more shot. Anything can happen next week with the championship hanging in the scales. Who is going to be your season 61 champion of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series? We will have to find out. We hope you folks will join us next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right back here on the Flatout Racing Network for coverage of that. Also, be sure to join us on Monday night as we'll be determining the Bare Bones Racing Series champion. That'll also be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hey, tomorrow night, join us right back here on the YouTube side at FRN, the Twitch side at Split Second Broadcasting, as we're going to be determining the champion for Season 5 of the Upper Edge Racing Bishop Super Speedway Series from iRacing Super Speedway. A lot of championships on the line here in the upcoming next 7 days, and cannot wait to see who will be the eventual victors. But thank you all for tuning to our coverage here tonight from Talladega Super Speedway. We hope to see you in the upcoming races, the upcoming broadcasts here during the course of this week, and right back here next Thursday night with the championship to be decided in the RTG Talladega Challenge Series. But I've been Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday night, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support